Madame Dorcas thought she had finally gained control over Colin's life, but when Thelma makes a desperate choice to destroy the objects that have bound them both, she's forced to confront a truth she wasn't ready for. Breaking the chains might mean losing everything she thought she knew about love, freedom, and herself. Can she find the strength to destroy what's keeping them trapped, or will the past consume them both? Welcome to African Tales by Chinwa, breathing life into African tales. Thelma walked aimlessly through the streets, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on her chest like a stone. Her home was gone. Collins, the man she had given everything to, had thrown her out like she was nothing. The air was cooler than usual, but it did nothing to calm the turmoil inside her. As she passed by a row of vendors on the street, she barely noticed the sounds of the busy market or the hustle of people selling fruits and fabrics. All she could hear was the echo of Colin's words, "Pack your things and leave this minute." Tears blurred her vision, but she wiped them away quickly. There was no time for crying. Not now, not when her entire world was falling apart. Thelma sat on the bench, tears streaming down her face, her phone trembling in her hand. She dialed Sharon's number, her voice cracking when it picked up. "Sharon, please, I need you." Sharon's voice was instantly warm, a mix of concern and urgency. "Thelma, where are you? What happened?" I'm still around the estate. I have no money. I don't even know where to go. Collins, he threw me out. I don't have anything left." Sharon's breath caught. "Stay there, I'm coming. Just stay right where you are. Don't move an inch, okay?" "Okay, please hurry." Sharon arrived within minutes, her car pulling up with screeching tires. Thelma stood up, her legs weak, but when she saw her best friend, she ran to the car like a lifeline. Sharon didn't wait for words. She just pulled Thelma into a tight hug, holding her as if she could absorb the pain. "Let's get you in the car," Sharon whispered, her voice thick with concern. "Stop crying, babe. We're going home." Thelma hesitated, trying to speak, but Sharon cut her off gently. "We'll talk when we're home." They drove in silence, the weight of Thelma's sobs filling the space between them. Sharon kept her eyes on the road, hands gripping the wheel tight, not trusting her voice. Thelma wiped her tears, trying to pull herself together, but the thought of Collins, the hurt in his eyes, still had her choking on her breath. "Don't worry," Sharon said softly, glancing at Thelma. "We'll figure this out. You're not alone, okay?" Thelma nodded, wiping her face with the sleeve of her jacket, but she couldn't shake the hollow ache in her chest. As they drove further into the night, all Thelma could think was, "Where do I go from here?" When they arrived at Sharon's apartment, Thelma stepped out of the car, still feeling the sting of everything that had happened. Sharon led her inside without a word, guiding her to the couch where she sank in, looking fragile. The smell, Sharon's perfume, filled the air, but it did nothing to calm Thelma's nerves. Sharon went to the kitchen, quickly grabbing a glass of water before sitting next to her. She handed it to Thelma, but Thelma didn't even raise her eyes. She took the glass from Sharon's hands, her fingers shaking, and sipped slowly. "Talk to me," Sharon said softly after a long silence. "Tell me everything." And Thelma did. She spilled out everything, the charm, the way Collins had changed, Dorcas's strange power, how she was thrown out like a piece of trash. Her words came out broken, each sentence heavier than the last. Sharon stayed quiet, listening, her face unreadable. When Thelma finished, there was a long pause. Sharon was silent, her mind turning over everything. Finally, she spoke, her tone more serious than before. "But Thelma, I warned you." Tears streamed down Thelma's eyes. "You know I warned you, right? About Collins, about his lifestyle." Sharon's voice was firm but gentle. "I told you that you couldn't build a future with a man who wasn't willing to work hard, a man who didn't have his life together. And I told you to get a job, to take control of your own life. But no, you wanted a baby girl lifestyle." Sharon paused, then sighed. "Now look where it's gotten you." Thelma winced, her heart heavy with the truth in Sharon's words. She didn't want to hear it, but deep down she knew it was the truth. She had ignored all the warnings because she was in love, hoping things would get better. But now everything was broken. The life she thought she was building had shattered before her eyes. Sharon gave her a warm hug as she softened her tone. "I'm not here to blame you, okay? I just feel so bad." Thelma nodded, feeling the weight of her mistakes. "But Sharon, I need answers. I need a solution. I know something is wrong. That woman in that house is no ordinary woman. I know he didn't what he did with his clear eyes. That woman must have bewitched my Collins," she lamented. Sharon looked at her, her expression thoughtful. She bit her lip for a moment before speaking. "Calm down, Thelma. I know this man of God. He's helped a lot of people in worse situations than yours. All we need to do is go to him, and he will give you the answers you're looking for through Christ." Thelma's eyes lifted, hope flickering in her gaze. "A man of God?" "Yes," Sharon said, her voice calm but certain. "He's not just a preacher. He's someone who understands things, spiritual things, things that can help you understand what's happening with Collins, with you." Thelma sat up a little straighter, her heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and desperation. "Where can I find him? I'll go. I'll do whatever it takes." Sharon gave her a small smile, the kind of smile that said, "I'm here for you. I'll take you to him. I'll help you figure this out." Meanwhile, Collins had become a mere shadow of himself. His once confident demeanor was gone, replaced by a numb obedience to Dorcas. Every day he grew more distant from who he was. He no longer made decisions, no longer questioned anything. He simply obeyed her commands. Dorcas, now fully in control, had taken over every part of their life together. The house was hers now. Collins cooked, cleaned, and served her without hesitation. He moved around the house like an automaton, doing everything she asked without a second thought. When she spoke, it wasn't a request, it was an order. "Collins, make dinner tonight," Dorcas would say casually, never lifting her eyes from her phone. "Yes, ma'am," he would answer, the words slipping out without any resistance. He cooked, cleaned, and waited for the next command. She didn't need to raise her voice. A simple glance, a gesture was enough to keep him in line. His spirit was drained, his will bent to her every whim. He didn't feel anger or frustration, just a strange emptiness. He was no longer Collins. He was Dorcas's servant, moving to her rhythm. Dorcas was the husband now, the one in charge. Collins was nothing more than a puppet on her string, doing as told, waiting for the next instruction. Weeks later, Thelma and Sharon arrived at the Prophet's Place, a humble, quiet church on the outskirts of town. Thelma prayed silently in her heart for a miracle, for a real solution. They stepped inside, the air thick with incense, and the prophet welcomed them with a calm, knowing smile. After brief introductions, Thelma began to explain her situation, recounting everything that had happened. Colin's strange behavior, Dorcas's grip on him. The prophet listened intently, his expression serious. When she finished, he didn't speak immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes for a moment and then spoke with deep assurance. "The Lord will deliver you, Thelma. But first, you must give your life to Christ." Thelma felt a weight in her chest, as though the prophet had seen straight into her soul. Without hesitation, she nodded. "I give my life to Christ." The prophet's eyes softened, and he prayed with her, speaking words of faith and healing. As they prayed, he paused and looked at her with a piercing gaze. "Dorcas, she is part of something much darker than you know. She is involved with a dark spirit, a quest for power. The charm she used on Collins and the charms you've been collecting from Baba. They have been destroying you both, tearing at the fabric of your life. It's not just the charm from Baba. It's what you've done in the past, the things you allowed into your life." Thelma's heart pounded. "What do I do, Prophet? I really need help," she said, crying her eyes out. He continued, his voice firm yet compassionate. "The only way to break free, truly free, is to destroy those charms, the ones you received from the native doctor, and the ones Dorcas has brought into his life. You must burn them, break them, do whatever it takes." Thelma felt a lump form in her throat. "How? Yes, I remember where Collins kept the gourd from Baba, but where do I find the one from Dorcas?" she stammered. The prophet nodded. "It is hidden somewhere in that house. Once you see it, make you destroy it in Dorcas's presence for it to work. Once you destroy them, your life and Colin's life will return to normal. But know this, when the charms are broken, Collins will come back to himself. But he will be starting from zero, from nothing. He will have to rebuild." The weight of his words hit her hard. Thelma knew what he meant. Everything, the money, the comfort, the life they had, would be gone. But she had no choice. She couldn't leave Collins like this, lost to something dark and unknown. "Do you understand?" the prophet asked, his voice gentle but stern. Thelma nodded, determination settling in her chest. "I understand. I will destroy them." But the prophet gave her clear instructions. "You must take a few days," he had said, his voice firm. "A few days of fasting and prayer. Seek God's guidance. Only then will he give you the strength and clarity to face the task ahead. The power you're about to confront is not one to take lightly." Thelma nodded, a sense of resolve settling in her chest. She wasn't about to rush into this battle without the preparation her spirit needed. It wasn't just about breaking the charms. It was about breaking the chains that had held Collins and her life in darkness for so long. Over the next 3 days, Thelma stayed at Sharon's house, fasting and focusing entirely on prayer. The house was quiet, the only sound being her whispered prayers, seeking God's strength, forgiveness, and direction. With each prayer, she felt the burden begin to lift. God was with her. She could feel his presence guiding her steps, preparing her for what was to come. On the 3rd day, as the sun set, Thelma stood before the window, looking out at the horizon. She knew what she had to do. It was time to go to Colin's house, to face Dorcas, to confront the evil forces that had claimed Collins, and to destroy the chalices that had held them all captive. She dressed up and went to the sitting room where Sharon was. "I'm going to Colin's house," she said, quietly to Sharon, who looked at her with concern. "I have to go there. I have to free him, Sharon." Sharon didn't argue. She simply hugged her tightly and said, "Be strong. God is with you." Arriving at Colin's and Dorcas's bungalow, Thelma felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She stood outside for a moment, breathing deeply, praying for the courage to do what she knew she must. She knocked softly on the door, and Dorcas answered, her expression immediately cold. "What do you want?" Dorcas asked, her tone sharp. Thelma took a deep breath and spoke with calm determination. "I'm here to take a few of my things that I left behind. There are a few things I forgot in the house." Dorcas crossed her arms, glaring at Thelma. "No, you're not taking anything. Leave now." But Thelma didn't back down. She wasn't here to fight, to argue. She had a mission. "Please, Dorcas, I'm not here to cause trouble. Just let me get my things and leave. I won't take long." Dorcas looked at her for a moment, anger flaring in her eyes, but Thelma's calmness seemed to wear her down. After a tense silence, Dorcas finally grumbled, "Fine, but make it quick." Thelma stepped inside, her heart pounding. The air was thick, and she could feel the weight of the darkness that had consumed Collins's life. She looked at Collins, who sat there like a statue. She made her way to the room where they'd once shared laughter, once shared dreams. But now, everything felt off. Wrong. Her eyes scanned the room, and then she remembered. She knew exactly where Collins kept his charm, the gourd that had been used to trap women and to keep him bound. She walked over to the shelf where it sat, hidden in plain sight. Then, with shaking hands, she brought it down. Now it was time to get hold of Dorcas's own. Thelma's heart pounded as she searched the room, her eyes scanning every corner. The darkness that filled the house seemed to have a life of its own, choking the air. She had been here countless times before, but today everything felt different. Today she was searching for something that could free Collins. Her eyes landed on a shelf hidden behind an ornate curtain. As her fingers brushed across it, something tugged at her. She didn't know what exactly made her check, but suddenly she bent down to look under the bed. There it was. A small bottle, almost unnoticeable in the dim light. It was positioned at the very edge of the bed, partially tucked away. At first it seemed like an ordinary bottle, but when she looked closer, something stirred inside. Her breath caught. There was something inside the bottle, something that seemed to move, struggling, shifting. It looked like it was trying to escape, to reach out to her. It was an unsettling feeling, a feeling she couldn't explain. Her hands shook as she reached for it, the bottle cool and smooth against her palm. She didn't know what she was expecting, but as soon as she lifted it, she saw the tiny red cloth tied around the neck. It was almost as if it was sealed, locked in place. But it wasn't just any bottle. As she looked closely, her heart stopped. Inside, a small figure, a miniature Collins. Her breath hitched. The tiny figure inside the bottle resembled Collins, his face, his features, trapped, helpless, and frozen in time. Thelma's hands trembled. She could barely hold the bottle steady. Her head spun, and tears started welling up in her eyes. For a moment, Thelma just stood there, frozen. The world around her seemed to close in, the walls pressing in tighter with every second. She held the bottle tightly. Then the weight of it all finally hit her. She had to act. She had to do something. With shaking hands, she turned and walked toward the sitting room where Dorcas was. As she moved, the tension inside her built up, and every step felt like she was walking toward her destiny. Dorcas sat on the couch, her eyes cold and calculating, as she glanced up at Thelma's approach. But when Dorcas saw the bottle in Thelma's hand, her face changed instantly. Her eyes widened in panic. "No! No, please!" Dorcas screamed, jumping to her feet. Her voice was filled with a fear that sent chills down Thelma's spine. Thelma didn't flinch. She didn't stop walking. "Dorcas," she said firmly, her voice steady. "This has gone on long enough. You've taken everything from me, from Colin's. It's time for this to end." Thelma raised the bottle. Dorcas screamed, her face twisted in fear and desperation. "No, please don't break it," she cried out, her voice ragged, her hands reaching out as if she could stop Thelma from doing what she knew needed to be done. As Thelma's hand hovered over the bottle, ready to bring it down, Dorcas stumbled backward, her mind spiraling. Her body went rigid, and her eyes widened in terror as she remembered the warning of her native doctor. "Do not let anyone see this bottle," he had warned, his voice cold and final. "Guard it with your life. If anyone should ever break it, you will lose your mind." The memory surged, and Dorcas remembered the heavy weight of his words. "If it falls, if it shatters, you will run mad," he repeated, his tone unyielding. The weight of the warning hit Dorcas like a physical blow. She gasped, her hands clutching her head in agony. The realization was too much to bear. Her whole body shook as she rushed toward Thelma, but she was too late. "No!" Dorcas shrieked, her voice filled with panic. "You can't do this! Please!" She staggered, desperate to snatch the bottle away, but Thelma was already in motion. Thelma didn't hesitate. She brought the bottle down, smashing it against the floor with a force that echoed through the room. The bottle shattered, pieces of glass scattering across the floor, and as the final crack of the glass rang out, something unbelievable happened. Collins gasped. The transformation was instantaneous. Collins, who had been lost in the grip of the charm, suddenly came back. His body jerked, his eyes flickered open, and he looked around in confusion. "What happened?" he murmured, blinking as though waking from a deep sleep. His voice was shaky, his words full of confusion. "Where am I? What's going on?" Thelma stepped forward, her eyes wide with shock and hope. "Collins, you're back. You're really back." He looked at her, his gaze confused, trying to piece things together. "Where have you been, Thelma? Where did you go? Why? Why did you leave me?" His voice faltered and his eyes filled with confusion. He turned and saw Madame Dorcas. "Babe, what is she doing here?" he asked. But before Thelma could answer, Dorcas screamed. The sound was unlike anything Thelma had ever heard, a wail of utter devastation. "No, no, no, no!" Dorcas shrieked, clutching her head. She dropped to her knees, her mind unraveling before their eyes. Why did you break it?" she sobbed, her voice unraveling into incoherent babbling. "I was supposed to keep him. Mine." Then Dorcas's eyes glazed over. The intense pressure of the curse, the control she had over Collins, cracked. And just like that, she lost her mind. Her body trembled and she started muttering incoherently, her words becoming a mess of fear and despair. She ran out of the house, her footsteps echoing through the hall, until Thelma heard the door slam shut behind her. That was the last time they ever saw Dorcas. Then Thelma took the charm from Baba and burnt it also. Collins, though confused and disoriented, was free. He was no longer bound by the charm. And as he stood there, trying to understand what had just happened, Thelma looked at him, tears streaming down her face. He was back. He was finally back. And for the first time in a long time, hope filled her heart again. Collins, now free from the charm's grip, listened as Thelma explained everything about the years of pain, the manipulation, and the control. his heart filled with regret as he apologized for the hurt he caused. Thelma, equally remorseful, acknowledged that she should have corrected him earlier and not supported him in his wrongdoings. But despite the apologies, a deep silence fell between them. Collins, desperate to repair what was broken, suggested they start over and rebuild their relationship. However, Thelma, though not angry, gently shook her head. She realized that their love was no longer enough to keep them together. The life they had built was based on illusions, and they both needed to find themselves again. "I can't continue with this," Thelma said, her voice steady yet filled with sorrow. "We need to start from scratch. We need to pick up our pieces separately." Collins, hurt but understanding, accepted her decision. Thelma's smile was bittersweet. She wasn't angry, just exhausted. With one last look, she left the house, knowing she had made the right choice, even though it broke her heart. In life, we often find ourselves trapped by choices, whether it's love, pride, or the desire for control. Sometimes the hardest thing we'll ever do is let go, even when we've invested so much. The truth is, no relationship, no matter how deep, can heal wounds created by manipulation or false foundations. Freedom comes when we surrender to God, trust His plan, and understand that walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. We must learn to value ourselves enough to let go of things that keep us chained, knowing that with every step forward, we reclaim our peace. In the end, it's not about the love we lose, it's about the strength we gain by choosing the right path. What will it take for you to free yourself from what's holding you back? Are you ready to make the hardest choice for the greatest peace? If you've enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Would you have made the same choice? Let us know in the comments below. Your thoughts mean the world to us. And make sure you hit the bell icon so you never miss a new chapter of African Tales by Chinwa. Stay tuned for more stories that breathe life into African folklore. Until next time, keep the stories alive